Welcome to Kool-Aid Pros. In this video, we'll show you how to change a faulty spider gasket in the multi-port valve of a top-mounted sand filter. This particular sand filter is a Hayward Pro Series 350-pound sand filter. Some smaller versions of the Hayward Pro Series do not have a replaceable spider gasket, but this model does. To begin, confirm that power to the equipment is turned off and will not turn on while you are working. As a reminder, never operate or turn the multi-port valve while the equipment is running, or you'll need to replace this spider gasket again. The first thing you will need to do is remove the keystem assembly by removing the screws fastening it to the valve body. Depending on the model of the filter, the screws will be threaded into the valve body or pass through the valve body into stainless steel nuts, as with this model. So let's go ahead and remove the nuts. And these nuts also have lock washers attached, so be careful not to lose them. Before you remove the keystem assembly from the valve body, make sure you know how the valve is oriented to the body. I find it easiest to take a picture for reference. Some multi-port valves are molded from the factory in a way that you cannot seat the keystem assembly into the valve body unless it is oriented in the correct direction. This model does not have that feature, but it does have a notch on both the valve body and keystem assembly that you can match up. Now that all the nuts have been removed and securely stored, it's time to wiggle free the keystem assembly from the valve body. The bottom of the keystem assembly is where I mentioned earlier the spider gasket is permanently installed on some smaller Hayward filters. If your keystem assembly has a spider gasket here, you will be unable to replace the spider gasket, and you must buy a new keystem assembly. This is more expensive, but much faster to repair. As you can see, this spider gasket has become unseated and then warped. Sometimes, if the gasket becomes unseated and is caught quickly, it can be reseated without needing to replace the gasket. Unfortunately, this one is beyond saving. To begin removing the old spider gasket, we will remove as much as we can by hand. Whatever can't be removed by hand, you can use a thin, flat-headed screwdriver to scrape out the more stubborn bits. Make sure the screwdriver is not wider than the channel to receive the spider gasket. Otherwise, you may damage the channel and need to replace the entire valve body. This can be frustrating work getting all of the old spider gasket out. Please be patient and careful, and avoid hurting yourself or damaging the equipment. There may be water in the pipes and filter at the same level as the spider gasket. We want the channel dry when we install the new spider gasket, so I'm splashing the water from the full sections to the empty ones to lower the water level in the valve body. Now we're going to use some rags to dry out the channel. It doesn't need to be perfectly dry at first, as we're just trying to see if all the old gasket has been successfully removed. It's important to note that the inside of the channel that receives the gasket is as flat as possible. If not, you may have high spots that raise the multiport valve and allow for water to seep through in other areas. Now we can see where there is still some remnants of the old spider gasket. So now that we can see them, we can continue scraping them out. The areas that you can see we are having the most difficulty removing the old spider gasket are the areas where the glue has been applied to adhere the gasket to the valve body. I've heard of different adhesives being used. Some use silicone sealant. This makes removing the old gasket easier, but in my opinion it makes removing the gasket too easy and can lead to the gasket prematurely unseating. I prefer to use superglue, but use it sparingly, as you will see shortly. We will continue to wipe out the channel as we go until we are confident we have sufficiently cleaned out the seat for the spider gasket. As you can see, there is still a little in there, but it is flush with the bottom of the channel. This should be okay, so we're going to dry fit the spider gasket to see if it sits flat in the seat. While we are dry fitting, we also want to confirm that the spider gasket is the right size and configuration. Different manufacturers and models may have different sizes and different amounts of fingers. This looks like it sits nicely in its channel, so we will remove the gasket and give the channel a final cleaning and drying. Any water still in the channel can interfere with the setting of the superglue. Now we're going to apply the superglue. As we mentioned before, we want to be kind to ourselves and only apply the amount of glue that is absolutely necessary. Just a little drop in a few crucial places. To be honest, I may have added a little bit too much here, but that's okay. I'll just have to pay for that the next time I need to replace this gasket. Most spider gaskets, including this one, has a rounded ridge on the top and is flat on the bottom. Make sure the gasket has good contact with the glue in the channel. You do not want excess glue squeezing up. If it does, it's best to immediately remove the spider gasket and get another one. The excess glue can hinder the gasket's ability to seal, or even cause a bond between the top of the gasket and the keystem assembly. And that is definitely not good. So we're going to do a final wipe to make sure no excess glue has squeezed out. Now we are ready to put the keystem assembly back into the valve body. This is where we reference our notes of how the keystem assembly is oriented in the valve body. The filter function lined up with the pressure gauge. Here we have a better view of the notch in the valve body and the keystem assembly to help us with the orientation of the valve. As we are reattaching the keystem assembly, we first just get all the nuts threaded onto the screws, but we're not tightening them yet. And when we do tighten them, we will do so in an alternating star pattern to give even compression to the internal O-ring. To make the installation a little easier, you can push down on the handle. This lifts the bottom of the key assembly just a little and relieves pressure on the spider gasket until we have finished tightening all the screws. Now we'll lift up the key assembly and move it to the filter setting and let it seat. We will then do one final pass, making sure the screws are fully snug. As with most screws and bolts on pool equipment using O-rings for a seal, hand tight is enough. You do not want to torque anything down because this can cause the O-rings inside to prematurely fail. There are a few ways you can notice that your spider gasket has failed. You may notice water leaking out of your sight glass that goes to your waistline while in filter mode. That is a clear sign that your spider gasket is not doing its job. Some people will put a valve on their waistline, and this stops the leak. However, it does not fix the root of the problem, so your filter may continue to let unfiltered water return into the pool. This valve never actually leaked from the waistline while in filter mode. However, we noticed in this case, while backwashing the filter, we saw dirty water entering the pool through the returns. That's another way to tell that your spider gasket has failed. We are now ready to test the new spider gasket. We make sure the valve is set to filter and turn the equipment on. We're going to check if water comes out of the waistline in filter mode. There doesn't appear to be any water flowing through the sight glass. We'll remove the sight glass to confirm this. There is a little bit of water in there, but remember earlier we splashed some water into the waistline to lower the water level in the valve body, so this doesn't seem to be anything more than the residual. The bottom of the keystem assembly gives the best, most even pressure to all parts of the spider gasket, including the fingers and both the inner and outer rings. If you feel like this video has helped you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching.